Well, the more you pay, the more you pay attention. Okay.
Mm,
Back when I owned the fourth largest Century 21 office in the United States. And I've always believed that real estate is the easiest shortcut to financial freedom. If there's a better industry, man, shoot me a text message, find me on Facebook, find me on LinkedIn, tell me what that better industry is. But, it's relatively easy to get into real estate. When I started in real estate, it cost me about $499 to get my real estate license. And I had that much money on my credit card. So it was perfect. It was like free, but the more you pay, the more that you pay attention. When I was making $1 million a year, I signed up for Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership. The cost of that at the time was $80,000. And they said, expect to spend about another $100,000 in travel. So that $180,000 has, already in the past 3 years, I've made more than 5 times my money.
Who's this? Oh, you're an entrepreneur? Oh, you're a real estate investor. Oh, you're trying to learn from those who did it. Well, come into the lab then. Put your white coat on, gloves on, notepad, and let's build, y'all.
Great.
Real estate experiment. What is happening, y'all? Today I have the pleasure of having Traci Gagnon here in the lab with us, which you're dialing in from, you said New Hampshire, right?
That's correct.
But what's really neat and what I'm really excited to have you is kind of, we talk about being a practitioner in the lab because that's what we call our show. And
Right.
I could just see from your deep-rooted wealth of knowledge over almost 2 decades of experience in real estate, you've kind of done it all from building a team to then being able to have an exit and now being able to help others do the same. And it's really, really nice to see and have you in the lab with us. I could go for days to talk about, all of your success and your certifications and all the impact that you've done. But I more want to hear it from you. Like if I'm sitting down, I travel a lot and I meet you at the airport, perhaps in, on the flight, and I ask you, hey, Tracy, like, what do you do for a living? What is your today's answer?
What a great question. So, how most real estate agents, they work until they drop dead on somebody else's tile floor. Right. Well, I help realtors get off that hamster wheel and develop a life of true money and time freedom. So what I tell people all the time is for real estate agents that are still struggling. Okay. So maybe they're new, or maybe they've been in the business a long time, or maybe they are caught off guard by the shift that we have in the marketplace right now. For those real estate agents, I can show them a proven playbook to help them build their real estate business, make more money in their traditional real estate business, and have a much higher quality of life. So stop working nights, stop working weekends, truly run their real estate business the way that they dreamed that it would be. And then for successful real estate agents, people that are in your position, I help those real estate agents get off the hamster wheel and leverage their influence so that they can help more real estate agents also get off the hamster wheel while building a very lucrative residual income stream above and beyond their traditional real estate business. And most importantly, for those that are interested in getting out of real estate sales altogether, I ran the largest real estate team for Century 21 back when Century 21 was number one, the early 2000s, and the number one real estate team in my city. So I know how to help an individual agent really grow and scale their traditional real estate business so that they can get out of day-to-day sales. And then, of course, the ultimate goal is to help real estate agents attract enough real estate agents that they're able to build residual income and also invest strategically in real estate so that they've got residual income coming in, whether they get out of bed or not. So that was a long answer to a short question.
So, what I do when I have someone like you steps into our lab is I'm very big on it's how you say things. And you dropped a lot of gems, and it's how you said it that I pick up, right? The keywords. So I want to highlight those in a second, Tracy.
Great.
But before, I love how you open that line. And just for those who know, we had, I can't remember an episode, Phil M. Jones, big influencer. He's the author of Exactly What to Say. You opened up your line by saying, well, you know how. And that is one of the best things you can do because it's like storytelling, right? I don't know. You're probably so used to it by now because you've done this a few times before, but it's just so cool because I'm like, oh my God, she knows. That's such a really good way to frame it. Well, you know how. And, when we're in a lab and I think we're working with investors or clients, I think it's really important to say, to actually be able to like people won't do business with us if we don't understand what we do.
Right.
And I think that you're kind of a proof of concept. You answered that so eloquently, but I want to talk about a few things. You said some keywords. You said influence, you said
Mhm.
scale, you said growth, you said residual
Right.
income, and then you said invest strategically.
Yeah.
What is the foundation, do you think? Because I recently just read the book Who Not How, and I think it's
Mhm.
just such a good book, and that's how I
Mm.
kind of like build my team, and like how I always think about like who, what do you think, if we're gonna just level set for a second, is that core value, core pillar, or foundation that an agent should start with? Is it the influence? Is it the team? Is it, and again, I'm asking because you've done it all.
Right.
So which
I
one do you
have.
think from your experience, if I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, and then it's funny, I'll send this to one of my partners because she's starting a new team, I should say.
Mhm.
Stumbling on my words. What would you say is that foundation that one should lay?
I am glad you asked. It'll take me into my shameless plug. Okay. It's mindset. So this is my newest book, Millionaire Mindset for Real Estate Wealth. And you can actually get a free copy, download a free copy at millionairebookfree.com. That's millionairebookfree.com. So it's not a profit center. I sell it for basically what it costs me to print the books, right? And the reason that I wrote it is because real estate agents are very quick to invest in social media marketing and Facebook ads and buying Zillow leads and all those shiny objects, coaching with this and blah, 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 blah. But the truth of the matter is, until you get this real estate right, you are wasting your time and your money. It's the proverbial, you're trying to teach the pig to sing, right? It wastes your time and irritates the pig. So it's all about mindset. The most beautiful analogy that I can give you is one from Mr. Michael Klaus, who's been a wonderful friend and mentor to me. And he talks about, imagine getting a beautiful basket of strawberries, okay, and cutting off the tips and cutting them into bite-sized pieces and sprinkling them with a little bit of brown sugar, right? Maybe you can add a little bit of heavy cream so that they're super yummy, right? Beautiful, wholesome, organic strawberries, right? And now imagine, drying them off and serving them in the dirtiest, nastiest ashtray from like 1979, right? And imagine mixing the strawberries around in the ashes along with the brown sugar and the cream, right? So you've taken something that's beautiful and pure and you've completely polluted it. Until you get the mindset right, any other money that you're spending, any other time that you're spending, you're very simply wasting it. The real estate agents and the teachers and the physicians, anybody that is successful, they're successful because they've got this real estate in the right space.
I couldn't agree more with you.
Mhm.
The amount of money that I spend on personal development, I think
Yep.
I think people would be surprised. Well, actually not our peers, because that's
Right.
what we all understand the importance
Right.
of it. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, all right, like Tracy's a proof of concept, I'm buying into this, but like,
Mhm.
what's my next step? Because mindset, there's books like yours, which definitely they should check out the book.
Thank you.
And I know you plugged it in there, and we'll have that in the show notes for sure. So if you're
Thank you.
driving, I always say keep your hands on the wheel. No worries
Yeah.
there. But you're saying it's a millionaire mindset, right? So
Mhm.
what if you're going to give us kind of a cliff note version of what that is, so someone can understand what they should be optimizing for, or maybe it's not the program that someone is selling us, but it's
Right.
internal. What does that internal work look like? And from you, what did it look like for you? When did that switch kind of go off of like, I've been thinking about this incorrectly, or I've had limiting beliefs, which I know is a big one for me. Anytime I
Yep.
invest into something, it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm not even thinking big enough, or I'm not even thinking the right thing.
Right.
What is it for you? Because that's my experience. What does that look like for you, the mindset shift and paradigm
Mhm.
shift?
Well, a lot of it depends on where you are, and
Mm,
I love the adage that, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So simply being open-minded to it, the universe is going to bring the right teachers into your life. I can guarantee that. For me personally, I was a poor, broke, miserable school teacher, 28 years old. And on Friday nights, I would go to Barnes and Noble, back when they were Barnes and Noble, and I would read books that I couldn't afford to buy. And I stumbled upon Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And
mm,
I sat there in one of those big comfy chairs and I started to weep. And the book was $14 and I had $21 till payday. And I bought the book and within 2 weeks started real estate classes. Within 3 months, quit my teaching job, burned my boat, jumped off the ledge and went into real estate. And then from there, just, it was a matter of trust. I just trusted that the right teachers would come along. My first real estate broker, great guy. My training initially was, here's the crisscross directory, here's your cubicle, go get them, girl, you're going to be great. And I went into his office and I said, what do I say? And he gave me a Mike Ferry script, right? So I just read the Mike Ferry scripts. And so I trusted that I had chosen the right broker that would lead me on the right path. And one step led to another step. It's the old adage about how, you don't have to see, Martin Luther King Jr., you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the next step. And the more next steps that we can take strategically in good faith, the universe is always conspiring to help us. And as long as we know that, as long as we believe that and trust that, it's the universe's responsibility to put the right books and the right people into our space. So you mentioned a book, and of course, I didn't write it down because I didn't want to be distracted, but I know I can go back and listen to this podcast. Anytime anybody says the name of a book, if I'm able to, I immediately download it onto my Audible, or I send myself a text message, because I believe that that's the universe saying, okay, this is the next step. So
Wow.
a lot of it is very simply trust. And being in the right circles, you've really got to make sure, you've got to be so incredibly protective of your energy. You have to be protective of what you watch at night to wind down. You've got to be protective of what you listen to in the day. I feel like listening to the radio is playing Russian roulette with my emotions and with my thoughts. So I'm very strategic about what I listen to, I will tell you that I listen to very, very little music. Most of my time is spent listening to podcasts or listening to books. And a lot of that is simply because, I grew up having every disadvantage that you need if you're going to succeed. And so I'm having to make up for some lost time. And so I love it. It feeds my soul. It meets all of my emotional needs. So anyway, another long answer to a short question.
No. I'm taking notes because that's what I do in the lab, which is really really cool.
Thank you.
You said when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And what I also love, I mean, you dropped so many good gems. $14 when you only had 21, which I think, let me ask you a question. Do you think that's still the, let's talk about that ratio for a second, because someone will be like, there's no way I'm doing that, right? But that very action is the thing that triggered kind of like that catalyst reaction of you kind of being able to spark your next move and then taking that next step. Do you feel that someone like you today, like, what does that ratio look like? I'm curious as far as like how much you spend on your education.
Yeah, what an inspired question. Well, the more you pay, the more you pay attention. Okay. Back when I owned the 4th largest Century 21 office in the United States. And I've always believed that real estate is the easiest shortcut to financial freedom. If there's a better industry, man, shoot me a text message, find me on Facebook, find me on LinkedIn, tell me what that better industry is. But it's relatively easy to get into real estate. When I started in real estate, it cost me about $499 to get my real estate license. And I had that much money on my credit card. So it was perfect. It was like free. But the more you pay, the more that you pay attention. When I was making $1 million a year, I signed up for Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership. The cost of that at the time was $80,000, and they said expect to spend about another $100,000 in travel. So that $180,000 has already in the past 3 years, I've made more than 5 times my money. I expect over the course of my lifetime to more than 20x that investment. So, you always are trying to get into smaller rooms, correct? You're always trying to get into rooms where it's cost prohibitive for most people to be in. I attended a big EXP event this past week where Tony Robbins was our keynote speaker. Can you imagine? Tony Robbins with 4,000 people. It was just a beautiful, intimate experience. And of course, I was sitting up in the front section. And my ticket, I can't remember if it was $1,900 or $2,400. But one of the things Tony said is, I'm talking to the people in the front here because they're the most successful. And he said that right from the stage. And it's a very jarring statement. We don't want to say those kind of things out loud, right? Because we don't want to hurt anybody's little feelers, but it's just very simply true. The reason that you fly first class is because the conversations are different with the people in first class.
100%.
Yeah. So, yeah, is it worth, an extra $900 for an hour and 25 minutes? Well, maybe,
Yeah.
I will tell you, when I was at a really, really tough place in my life, a very, very tough place, I sat next to a guy, and we started chit-chatting, and he pulled out one of the books that he just recently, and I think the name of it was like Show Your Ink. And it was just a random thing, but I read that, I devoured that book, and it was the teacher appearing when the student needed that specific book. So you've got to trust that. If you're going to go attend happy hour, you want to go to happy hour at the most expensive restaurant in town. You don't want to go to happy hour where they've got 75-cent margaritas, correct?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you're saying this, because this is something we don't talk about. Well, you mentioned it too, and I want to be clear, because you need to be very clear on who it is you're trying to be in proximity to and who you're paying for access. Because again, there's a lot of noise out there.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, then pay for that premium access. Like I can't, whether it's mentorship, there's this thing called it's called the paradox of practice. I think that's, for me, is what I look for. The paradox of practice is when someone is basically and this is what we need to be careful for. It is, let's say you're selling the book and that's how you're making your living, but you're not a true practitioner. I think what you need to be careful, what I always look for, is someone that I would trade positions with, and someone who's walked the walk, right? And then when they walk that walk and I get in proximity, like I would trade places with them. They're not just writing about it, they're not just speaking about it, they're doing it, right? And that's actually why we love having someone like you, because you can you've walked the walk, then you're still walking the walk, and then therefore you can talk the talk. So I think that's very important, and I think we should be, and it's very easy these days to know, right? Because anyone will sell you anything, but hey, get into the rooms where there's practitioners who have done what you want to do, and then pay a premium to rub elbows with sometimes it might be a nugget, a connection, a network. It's just fascinating. But enough about my key takeaway, because I would love to hear what your key takeaways are from fast forward right now, where, what is it, Q3 2022. You've just looking at your bio is just so impressive. But what do you think is right now, if you were 20 years ago, right, going back to little Tracy, or however far back we want to go, as where when you feel you were kind of just getting started, if it's 2022 today and you are Tracy, with the access that we have, whether it's the social media, whether it's this technology that we have in this day and age, again, let's say we got the mindset ticked off, right? Great. What is the next? And I'm not even going to preface it, because I want to, what is that next thing I should be focusing on? I think mindset's a constant. What's that next thing that you would be focusing on in 2022 today, right now, for the growth of someone's business and even personal development?
Absolutely brilliant question. So I owned my real estate company. I started it in 2000 and lost money my first 3 years, lost about $1 million in 3 years, right? The reason that
that's great for context, by the way.
I
appreciate you saying that, because I think we always see the end result, but we don't see that grind. So thank you for sharing with that.
Right. Well, the challenge with the reason that real estate brokers are called brokers is because they're always brokered than their agents. Okay. So the franchise model is very broken. And so I turned it around. I got the right coaching. I got the right mentorship. I invested a lot of money that I didn't have into really, truly building that brokerage. And one of my partners called me in 2007. One of my coaches called me in 2007 and said, Tracy, it's coming. And I argued with them. Oh, no, I'm in San Antonio, Texas. And, we didn't have those big rises in prices. So we're not going to have a big crash. And I told them all the reasons why San Antonio was so insulated, and chip, 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 or what does Tony Robbins say? Our our optimism serves us everywhere except in our finances, right?
Mm,
So I was very wildly optimistic, and he listened to me, and I realized that I was the only one talking. And so I finally stopped talking, and he lowered his voice an octave and he said, Tracy, it's coming. And I believed him. I 100% believed in Ruben. And so I started the process of selling my real estate company, and I sold it 6 weeks before the market crashed. Okay.
that's crazy.
I know, by the grace of God. So I saw everybody else's houses burning down while I had money in the bank. So I had a unique perspective on it. And the biggest perspective was I listened to the right person, and I listened to somebody that had a bird's eye view of what was going on in the real estate industry. Okay.
Mm,
So whether you want to believe it or not, we are going through some crazy, crazy, crazy times in our industry. And I don't believe that it will ever be like it was. We have made that shift, and we are in a new place in the real estate market, and you've got to be prepared to meet your clients in a completely radically different way than you met them a year ago. And you have to be looking at your business very differently than you did a year ago. You have to be investing in your business differently than you did a year ago. You've got to be paying attention. And the challenge is most real estate agents are so focused on simply getting their current deals done that they're just not paying enough attention. So the world is always shifting, but we're seeing a much bigger shift now than we ever could have imagined. And you've got to make sure that you are shifting along with the marketplace.
Experimentation. I always experiment. And the reason why is I'm always trying to find the best tool, the best method, and the best vehicle to help me get to my end goal. One of the tools that we use in the short-term rental space is Guesty for Hosts. Now, experimentation, you know that I love to test things, and I wouldn't be sharing with you anything that I don't use myself. As a short-term rental superhost, Airbnb superhost, listings that we own and co-host at the same time, I can tell you that there's no better software that allows us to streamline our business. Right now, currently, there's actually 3 properties right now that are currently where guests are checking in, and I'm here with you, and I did not need to send in check-in instructions for these current properties, right? There are multiple ways that you can streamline your operation from on the front end and on the back end, from being able to create a website, from being able to get income reports for your team, to looking at statistics, to setting up auto reviews, to integrating your smart lock so that you don't have to sit here and send every day and remind yourself to send the passcodes for your smart locks. No, instead you can integrate directly the exact same way that you can actually send your cleaners a link so that they don't have to remind themselves when they need to go to cleanings. There's text reminders that go out. There's links that can go out for them. This is a tool that if you're looking to give a smooth experience for your team on the back end, it will truly reflect, and it does, for your guests on the front end. Make sure you go to host.guesty.com and use our unique link. Our unique link will be in our bio, in the show notes. If you're currently watching this, you'll see it right here at the bottom of my screen. Use this unique link so that you can tell Guesty that I sent you. You don't want to miss out on this. You need a PMS, property management software, in your business if you're looking to operate like a super host that you deserve to be, so that your guests can have the best experience that they deserve to have at your properties. Again, that host.guesty.com. Use our unique link that is here on the screen, in the bio, and in the show notes if you're listening to this, guys. Happy hosting.
At a high level, what does that shift look like for someone who's listening? Is it more of what would you say if, okay, go down this avenue and discover more? Because I think you're giving us that shift. What direction are we going in? Is it more of a shift in business model? Is it a shift in, again, not that you have a magic, wonder ball, but I'm just curious,
Right.
like, what would you say from all your experiences, the kind of shift that one should be making?
Well, that's a great question. And I will answer that from the most strategic position that I can give.
Yeah.
Whenever things are going well, like they have been for a really long time, right? Then you don't mind paying your broker a lot of money. Right? You're okay with paying a franchise fee. You're okay with ridiculous commission splits. You're okay with paying for an office. You're okay with this. You're okay with this fee and this fee and this fee and this fee and this fee for not getting much service, because you don't want to upset your little apple cart. correct?
Mhm.
But when we start to see big shifts like we're seeing now, you've got to be much more strategic about the real estate company that you're with, the real estate seminars that you're attending, and the way that you're generating your real estate business. And you've got to learn to have much more complicated conversations with your clients. Okay. You've got to be able to look your clients in the eye and say, listen, what I told you you could sell your house for 2 months ago is no longer realistic. And then be able to back it up with statistics in your local marketplace about why that is. You've got to be talking about the radical decrease in the number of people that are applying for loans. And that's one of the biggest indicators of where we're going to be 3 months from now. You've always got a future pace, right? Where your business is right now, the money that you're making right now in your business is a result of the activities that you did 6 to 9 months ago. And if you are still doing the same thing you were doing 6 months ago in your business, guess what? Come Christmas time, you're going to be applying for Macy's for a part-time position, because what worked 6 months ago is no longer working now. You've got to be very careful about the promises that you're making to your clients. You've got to be very careful about the promises that you're making to your buyers. And you've really got to get in tight with your lenders and be having conversations with them. That's who you should be talking to every single week. Hey, listen, what are you seeing in your business? What has been the shift in the past 2 weeks in your business? Because the lenders are seeing it 2 to 4 weeks before we are in the real estate business. You've got to be reaching out to your broker. Hey, listen, what are you seeing? What kind of pain points are you seeing from the broker's position? The more complicated your conversations you can have, and the more conversations you're having with people that are seeing it at a bird's eye view, the faster you're going to be able to truly respond and pivot. The person that pivots the fastest is the person that wins in every industry.
Love it. I love it. Let's talk about and I love the strategic, that's just such it's one of my favorite books. I don't know if you know, Patrick Bet-David, is Your Next 5 Moves, right? And he talks about, in short, I think this is what you're saying. A lot of us play checkers, excuse me. Checkers is 1 move, 2 moves. Chess players who are like the grandmasters, they're like, and I need to learn how to play chess, because when I read that, I was like, hold on, wait a minute. They're like 12 moves ahead. And I think sometimes, a lot of us get caught up, and this is why it's so important to be working, on your business most of the time, not so much in it, because when you're in it, it's hard for you to kind of see outside of what's happening, that bird's eye view that you're talking about, right? And the reason why you reminded me of that is you need to be I love what you said about the where you're at today, and that's for everything, for your business, it's for your life. It's like you're where you're at today based on the mindset that you had and based on the actions that you took. I love the 6 to 9 months prior. It could even be deeper if we're honest.
Of course.
So that's really neat. I really love that. Let me ask you from because we have a lot of listeners who are investors. That's our main group. So I would love to hear your take on this, because you've been in the trenches and you're speaking with agents and you're go around the world speaking about this stuff. If I'm an investor right now, and I'm an investor as in like that's my identity, I invest. With where you see the marketplace is going, would you say when is best to kind of, again, preserve some cash and be ready for some discounts, and or continue to invest, because then you get the interest rates don't look like they're going to go any lower? Like, what would you, if you had a couple mentees in the lab, and you wanted to give us a little bit of insight from your experience and how you've seen these cycles, what would you say, whether I'm your client, friend, peer, and I'm an investor and I have some cash and I'm ready to invest right now, what would you say is my best next 5 moves?
Man, be afraid, be very, very afraid. Probably not what you wanted to hear. And again, I've got to talk, I am not here to give any kind of investment advice. All I can do is say, you've got to look at what's happened in the past year to the investment industry. And if there is one section of real estate that's apple cart has been upset, it's the investors. And here's the reason why: because institutional money has moved into the traditional real estate space. I've heard it said that 19% of all homes that were sold last year were sold to institutional investors. I'm not talking about your mom and pops that might buy an investment home around the corner, or somebody that's buying 2 or 3 homes in an LLC. I'm talking about the largest money in the entire world is buying traditional real estate. And they're not just buying onesies, twosies, but they're going in and trying to buy entire, you're nodding because you're seeing it, right? They're going in and buying entire communities if they can.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Let's say that it's true that 19% of all homes in 2021 were sold to institutional investors. That means that's 19% of the inventory that theoretically would go back on the market 5 to 7 years from now. That's gone forever. They're going to hold those properties forever and ever and ever and ever. So that
Why do you
means,
say that?
well, that's their strategic play because it makes good financial sense. I mean, it very simply makes good financial sense. And so if they can accumulate another 19% this year and another 19% next year and another 19% the year after, where does that put the real estate market a decade from now? I mean, when you start talking about compounding in that way, and I hope that I'm mistaken, but I follow this. I follow this very, very, very strategically and very clearly. I'm looking at what Blackstone is doing. I'm following Ray Dalio. Yeah, I mean, the whole if you want to go with the really deep end of the system, you will own nothing and be happy, right? How many times are we hearing that? So if that is the strategic play, then where does that leave a regular investor that is looking to add 5 to 10 homes to their portfolio every year? Are they looking at higher prices? Yeah. Are they looking at less inventory? Yeah, because the most desirable, and remember, institutional investors, they're getting money at rates that you and I can't even fathom.
Yeah, they can play the long-term game, right?
Right.
Very similar to the way these companies, right? Wait, the Amazons of the world, like they weren't profitable for years, right? We
And they don't
can't
care.
play that game if you're
No.
right.
No.
So I love where you went with this, because I always like to leave our practitioners here in the lab some tactical advice. Great. Okay, I'm seeing what's happening on a macro level. What does it mean for me then? Am I then not trying to compete? Am I trying to compete now before things get worse? What do you, again, we know that you're not giving financial advice here. We're actually just tactically speaking in the lab, because that's what we love to do as investors.
Yeah.
But what do you think is the best move? I mean, I'm so used to institutions being in the multifamily space, and they're buying single families. What's going on here? Like, what do I do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, what I've done is I've banded with some of my platinum partners, and we're buying very large apartment complexes. So we're trying to play in that space that the big boys have been playing in for a long time. But I've got exactly. But I've got the financial resources now to do that, where I didn't have that for most of my life. Right. If you are in a marketplace that institutional money has not moved into, man, I would buy everything I can get my hands on. And if you are in a market, if your traditional market is the place where those institutional investors are buying, we'll go somewhere else. I mean, there's always opportunities. And that's the wonderful thing about real estate, is that you can buy it anywhere, and certainly anywhere in the US, and certainly in other countries too. So you go where they're not there yet. You buy in the pathway of progress. That's what I would do. Find those areas where they're not there yet, because they're probably going to come there, and put down deep roots. And if you're in a position to hold for the long haul, and that makes financial sense for you, I think, I mean, I don't know, that seems to make a lot of sense. But you've simply got to follow your marketplace, and there's always opportunities. And so pivot what you're looking at. Buy more strategically now than you ever have. And a lot of it just depends on, how deep are your pockets? How long can you afford to hold? How long can you afford to, barely make the rents? And you really look at, my goodness, whoever would have imagined 3 years ago that the government would tell renters, hey, you know what? You don't have to pay your rent. And guess what? You don't even have to pay your mortgage. I mean, it's an unimaginable concept, which wiped a lot of the smaller investors and even medium-sized investors off the map. Because you didn't have to pay your mortgage, but if you had a loan on investment properties, you still had to make those payments. And if 100%. Your tenants were not the government said, you know what, you don't have to pay your rent. So I think that has instituted another level of uncertainty, because it's something that we simply couldn't have imagined before the change in the world. So be paying attention.
Yeah, no, I love that. Listen, as far as where you go for your resources, kind of sharing, would you mind sharing with Experiment Nation where you typically tap into your day-to-day kind of, hey, let me get some insight. You mentioned Ray Dalio. That's a great genius resource. Any others you mind dropping in here for the rest of us?
Well, again, I'm predisposed because Tony Robbins changed my life with a $14 book. Yeah. And because I've spent, I think knocking on $1 million with the Tony Robbins organization. I listen to almost everything I can hear him say. And he's the one that led me, of course, to Ray Dalio. Right. So a lot of it is just what makes sense for you as a real estate investor. You've got to follow other people that are doing real estate investing at a higher level than you are. So whatever your niche is, whatever your niche is, you've got to follow that. Of course, Grant Cardone has brought real estate investing to a market that maybe previously wasn't a part of it. And he talks about how, you need to have at least 16 doors. And I think that's a very powerful concept, so you've got to make sure that you're buying at whatever level makes financial sense for you. But I also love what Donald Trump made famous, that people get really excited about big deals, right? So if you can pull money together with a group of investors and buy bigger deals, it's more interesting. It's lots of times a little bit more accessible because there's less competition in that marketplace too. 100%. So follow your podcast, follow the people that you recommend, read the books that you suggest, read the books that other real estate investors suggest, and get into the most expensive real estate investing seminars that you can afford to get yourself into.
Yeah. The reason I love your answer is because, I think what you said is get as close to someone who's in your niche, who's like 10 steps ahead. They'll guide you towards that next resource and then that next step. I think sometimes we do that. Oh, like, let me try to get access to Tracy. Well, Tracy's been doing this, for 20 plus years and has paid her way up into getting to these rooms where she gets this information that makes sense for her financial position.
Right.
So I think it's very, very good how you stated that to, shoot up for the next step, go up the ladder with the next person where you're trying to be with what makes sense for you in your niche. I think that's the best key takeaway. Let's get into the my favorite part, which is the rapid fire round, because I always say that your representation, or your business yourself, is a representation of who you are. And obviously I'm looking at you right now, and you've really established yourself as your own brand, and because of how much you've invested into yourself. So let me ask you, what's your we talked about mindset, we talked about a few books, but what is like one of your, when I say favorite book, like what's the number one thing that comes to mind? I know you read tons of, if you're anything like me, but is there any like thing that you're like, okay, you got to read this?
Think and Grow Rich, of course. I re-listen to Think and Grow Rich every quarter. So in January, it's the first thing that I re-listen to. I finish whatever book I'm reading, and then I go back into that. So Think and Grow, a slow learner, right? I don't know how many gazillions of times I've listened to Think and Grow Rich, but I feel like when I'm listening to it, I feel like I could actually just read along from memorization. That's I believe the first place to start. Go to YouTube and listen to Earl Nightingale's The Strangest Secret. And that's 31 minutes. The Strangest Secret. I've listened to that over and over. I could probably recite that verbatim as well. From a financial standpoint, Money Master the Game and Unshakable by Tony Robbins, the best-selling books on personal finance, I believe, in history. So, because he really dummies it down, for lack of a better term. He makes it so incredibly simple without any jargon. I think for investors, that's a very, 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 very powerful place to start as well. I listen to basically, Ray Dalio puts out some really great content. He's put out something about the changing world order that you can listen to on YouTube as well. I love Ray Dalio. He scares me,
He's intense.
He is. And there's no no Pollyanna, right? I mean,
Mhm.
this is a man that he's not selling optimism. He's selling what is actually going on. So, but again, what was working a year ago is not necessarily working right now. So you got to be listening to something that's new. But if you start to subscribe to those channels, what is YouTube going to do? They're going to pop up. Oh, this person just released, because you like this person, you might like this person. So I'm always looking for new people to listen to and to learn from. And usually you can tell within a minute or two, if something doesn't resonate with me pretty quickly,
Yeah.
then I move on.
Yeah. I think you might like Patrick Bet David. He's
I would
has
love,
a
I'm all over it. Yeah.
yeah. Are you familiar with him?
No, but like I
Okay.
said, because
Yeah.
you've mentioned him
Yeah.
now twice, that's going to
Yeah.
be my next person to listen to. I love it.
He gives us the real thing about where the marketplace is going, what skill sets you should be working on, how
Right.
people have been getting over. Like, he's really raw, and I
Yeah.
like that, because I think we've been a little bit, buttered up a little bit, and people don't like to be like a little sensitive. Don't let me go through that rabbit hole. But I'll also give you another one that I'm just sharing openly here. I love the recommendations you said, and one that I periodically listen to as well that I think you'll appreciate is, have you ever listened to Outwitting the Devil?
Oh my gosh, by C.S. Lewis. Are you kidding me? Is that one of this? It's terrifying.
It's Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill.
It's so good because
Terrifying.
the drifters, and I listen, and it's crazy because anytime I listen to that, I have like this huge insight, or not insight. I have something that happens in my life that's kind of like very like it's a weird energy. I truly believe in energy, but it's kind of crazy. Anytime I listen to that book, I listen to an audible like Outwitting the Devil, and it just opens up a whole new kind of paradigm every single time. So that's
and
really
the history on that book. Have you read the history on that book? How it wasn't published until after Napoleon Hill's death.
Ask for
that's a very good recommendation. It's a very bold one, but it's an excellent recommendation. It was one of the most. I mean, that's kind of right up there with The Shining. It's a very scary book. So yes, some very good recommendation.
Oh, that's awesome. Listen, we talk about boots on the ground, building teams, buying businesses, buying franchise, etc. What is the best skill today that you think one should be working on constantly, or that should add to their Rolodex to survive and excel and succeed? I know it's a loaded question, but I would love to hear what you have to say about a skill that you should be working on.
Well, anything that you can do to communicate more clearly and more powerful. The words are what where we are financially is because of the words that we use, not only with each other, but also the words that we use with ourselves. So really understanding the power of words, the power of language, the power of structuring a sentence. So you can say one thing to a seller and they'll want to fire you, and you can say the same words differently and they'll give you a price reduction. Correct? Yeah. So I'm a big believer in scripts. When I'm going to have a difficult conversation with a client or with one of my real estate agents, I've got over 7,000 people in my EXP organization. When I'm going to have a challenging conversation, I will sit down and script it out before I make that phone call, because I want to make sure that my words are saying the right thing. The power of language. So anything that you can read on the power of words, study neurolinguistic programming, study persuasive speech, study persuasive selling. Those are really incredibly important things to do right now. And especially because we live in this social media world where we're typing things all the time that the entire world sees. It's not like it used to be. We're having public conversations every time we post something on Facebook. So that's what I would really focus on.
That is one of the best answers that I've heard. 100%. No, I'm serious. That is such good. That is such good advice. It's so important. And you can do it on, things like this. This is why I love podcasting. Podcasting actually allows, one to actually listen and because communication is listening. So I love that. But then again, being able to say what you mean what you say and persuade. Oh gosh, Tracy, you nailed it. Speaking of, I think a great segue is, what last few words do you want to leave us here to our listeners, if we didn't get anything, we just kind of like fast forward till the end, just planting that seed. Because I think you'll appreciate, this as well, because I think that's kind of where you come from, of like planting a seed and then just watering that plant. What seed and message do you want to leave our listeners here today, Tracy?
Oh boy, what a beautiful question. Be true to yourself. I think a lot of us, we want to be loyal. We don't want to disappoint anybody. We want to be liked, all of that kind of stuff. You got to get really clear on the life and the lifestyle that you want to have, and then make strategic moves that will take you closer to that lifestyle. We hear it all the time. Proximity is power. If you're not living in the city that you want to live in, why aren't you? And what needs to happen in order for you to make those transitions? If you're not in the relationship that you want to be in, well, what changes do you need to make to attract that right person? And that doesn't mean changing partners. It very often means changing how you are showing up in the relationships that you have. Understanding that we are exclusively responsible for our own happiness. And sometimes that's bloom where you're planted, and sometimes that's make some radical shifts in geography. And make sure that you are surrounded by people that are playing at a higher level. When I was with my 2 previous real estate companies, it was great and I loved them. And every real estate company brings something different to the marketplace. But when I joined eXp Realty, I was suddenly playing with people that were playing at such a higher level that I had to work and I had to become much better in order to be in the rooms with those folks. So I think that that's a really big part of it. Where do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? And I'm also reading a book that the last podcast that I actually hosted was a guy named Mitch Ribick, with Mitch, a good friend of mine. And he recommended a book called Die with Zero. And it's about, understanding that it's not about accumulating wealth. It's about accumulating beautiful experiences. And sometimes that means making less and enjoying life more. And I think that that's very powerful too. Know your freedom number. How much money do you need to have invested at what rate to never have to work again? And then you're focused on the projects that you really want. And somehow, for reasons that we don't really understand, the money flows even more easily when we're focused on projects that really spark our soul and spark our energy. So know your freedom number, work for that, and then help other people. One of my friends, his law agency is called the Talented 10th. And he talks about how, there's 10% of the population that's going to rise up no matter how much they're suppressed, right? But of those 10%, only 10% are going to reach back down and lift other people up. And that's called the Talented 10th. And that resonated with me in such a powerful way. So once you've achieved that level of success, even if that's just the next rung up on the success ladder, you're a waitress and all of a sudden, you're making much more money than the other people that you're waiting tables with. Well, how do you help those other waiters and waitresses make more money? And so for me, one of the tricks that I learned when I was waiting table is whenever you deliver the check to the patron, pat them on the shoulder. Thank you so much for coming in, and your tips go up. So what did I do? I shared that with the other people that I waited tables with. Wherever you are, there's somebody that you're doing better than they are. Reach up and help them. And the more that we can help the people that are around us rise up, the more we as a global population will rise up. And the more you give, the more you get, right?
Tracy, you're a human being first, and your energy is just, and how you say things. You're a wonderful speaker, and I've been interviewing a lot of respectable people who come in here, and I have to say you button that up better than anybody, and I really appreciate you for that. Seriously, I mean it. And
thank you.
I love your abundance mindset. That's one of the things where I've realized that the more I continue to surround myself with people who are just operating at such a high level, it's just the abundance mindset. I mean, it's just, there's no secrets. It's execution. No. The pie is big enough for everyone to have. Give your best secrets, elevate those around you. And this is why we have this platform. So I can't thank you enough for,
Oh,
out of August, out of your day today, you spend an entire hour with us. And I'm going to definitely be re-listening to this, not only to get some of the, I took some notes about the videos I got to watch, Die with Zero, the books I need to read, and just the mindset that you
mhm.
have. I'm going to have it on replay, and I know Experiment Nation should do it as well
Thank
if you
you.
want to be anywhere close to be as glowing as Tracy is and having the
Oh,
impact that she's having. So, Tracy, without further ado, I'm going to definitely be staying tuned with what you're doing and
me.
your respective experiments. I just want to know with Experiment Nation where I can tap in. I could probably reach out to you, or maybe we could
Uh-huh.
kind of little VIP. I'm rubbing shoulders with the
Yeah,
greats now.
absolutely.
Get proximity.
We're friends
Um,
now. Yeah.
but for the rest of Experiment Nation, like if we want
Mhm.
to just tap in, where is the
Mhm.
best way to see what you're up to
Yeah,
and get in
great.
touch with you?
Exploreyourcareer.com is a great place to find me, and you can actually private message me there too. Just send me a little message. I read everything that comes through there. Again, my book is available on Amazon, Millionaire Mindset for Real Estate Wealth. And the cover story alone is worth the price of admission, that's for sure. And I'm here to help and serve you guys. Like I said, whatever I can do to help. And, my niche is helping real estate agents explode their career. So if you're an active real estate agent, or if you're a real estate agent that has influence, please reach out to me, and let's see if there's some good synergy. And I got to tell you, Ruben, it has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. Your energy is infectious, and it's been an honor and a blessing to spend this time with you. You're inspiring beyond words, and I look forward to following every episode of your podcast.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And again, thanks for plugging away. We'll have, if you're, driving hands on a wheel, we'll include all of the information that Tracy provided in the show notes, and make sure you guys check out definitely her Mindset Millionaire book, and obviously check her out on her website as well, because I'm definitely going to be tuning in. And Tracy, thank you again for over delivering. And just
Oh.
like that, we are out.